Well, welcome back. Now we're going to start showing you how to set up your TaxSlayer account so you can do your own tax return. So let me share my screen. And your partner will have sent you a link that you need to use. And I think, as I said before, it's really important you start from that link. That takes me to a page that looks just like this. And it says, welcome to TaxSlayer VITA TC self-prep kiosk. And we're going to click the button here to create a new account or log in with an existing account. Now, if you've used this in the past or used TaxSlayer, you'll have an account. Hopefully you remember that, but I'm going to assume you don't have an account, and we're going to go create one right now. So I'm going to click on the little continue button right down here. And then that takes me here. So it recognizes I have an account, but I'm going to say we're going to create a new account. Click right up here where it says create account. And I'm going to change this email. I'm going to make this sccvita@gmail.com. Username, I'm going to call sccvita. Password, I'll make up a password here. It tells you all the rules right here. It's got to be 8 characters long, contain 1 upper and 1 lowercase letter, 1 number, 1 special character. And yeah, I know they don't match, but I'm going to fix that right now. And then I give it a mobile phone. Now, this is kind of important. If this account is going to require 2-factor authentication. It's a lot easier with your mobile phone number. It can send you an email, but I put in my phone number there, and I'm going to click this little box to say verify an account with text messages. Okay, so I'll say create an account, and then see now it's going to send me a code to my phone. I haven't received it yet. I may click on here to resend the verification code. And I know it's wrong. I had my phone on silent is why it was sending it to. So okay, so I typed in the code that came on my cell phone. Okay, success, your TaxSlayer account has been created. So let's keep going, and I'm going to click on continue here. Okay, so now it gives you a bunch of personalize your TaxSlayer experience. It gives you a lot of terms and conditions. You know, I know we don't read all of this stuff. I would suggest you read it, but I'm going to type in my name here. That's going to affirm that I've read this. And if I was filing a joint return with my spouse, I'm going to click this because I'm going to pretend that I'm filing this with my spouse, Donna. Okay, so we're going to make up information as we go along here, but I'm going to show you how to file a joint return with this. So I'll click on continue here. So I don't recommend this, but if you had a PDF copy of your 2020 tax return, you could upload it here and it would scan it and try to bring in a lot of the information to save you a lot of typing. For us right now, we're not going to do that. I'm going to click down here where it says skip. Okay. And then now it's going to ask us for information, and I'm going to type in my first name. Now, by the way, this name should match your social security card because TaxSlayer, when you go to e-file this return, it matches it with the social security database. And even though my official name is James, when I got my social security card, I put Jim on it. So that's what I'm going to use here. So put that. It's going to social security number. I'm going to just make one up here. Okay. Date of birth, put in your date of birth. I don't care if you guys know how old I am. I'll just go ahead and put in what it is. And my occupation, I'm a nonprofit executive. Okay. Put in that. And now I'll say continue. Now it asks for my mailing address, and I'm going to just make up a mailing address. Now, if you have an apartment number, put that. By the way, I'm using the tab key on my computer to move from field to field. And here's another very important thing. Do you see these little red asterisks right here? Whenever you see a red asterisk, that means it's a required field. Now, the first place it takes me to when I'm doing an address here is the zip code field, because when I type in the zip code, it's going to populate the city and state. I'll put in a zip code that's there, and you see how it populated Phoenix, Arizona. Now it's going to ask you for residency status. And so it's assuming, and for most of you, this is going to be the case. When you live in Arizona, you're going to say, I'm a full year resident. It's possible you moved in during the year, and then you're going to have to choose your part year state residence, and you're going to have to file returns in 2 different states. Or I don't think this will apply to any of you, but if you just worked here and your residency was in another state, you would say you were a non-resident. 99% of us, we're going to say we're a full year resident of this state, and then click on continue. So now there's a lot of questions in here, and I really highly recommend you go through and read these carefully, okay? Because now it's asking about Jim, this is me. Could I be claimed as a dependent on someone else's return? Perhaps you can use this software to prepare your children's tax return. And if you were preparing your child's tax return, you're going to want to click on this and say, yes, he could be claimed on my thing. And then if maybe that student, maybe your child was a full-time student that was over 18, but he was a full-time student at a eligible education institution. You know, if you were blind or deceased, all of these things, you want to contribute $3 to the presidential election campaign. Here is, I'm going to slow down here, right, to right there. Jim wishes to elect to use their 2019 earned income to figure their 2021 earned income credit and or child tax credit. I would suggest you just go ahead and click this box. It doesn't hurt anything, right? And then it'll populate this with COVID-19. I'm going to put in some earned income in it, even though it says disaster victims. Of course, you've got to have your 2019 return. This is really just for lower income people, but you know, you could make sure that it then counts towards that. So I'm going to just make up a number here, you know, $18,000, right? Put it in, and earned income means what you made from work, not counting interest and dividends and capital gains. If you did any virtual currency, you'd want to check this box, okay? If you want to receive written communications from the IRS in a different language, you could check that box. Or if you needed an accessible format, you know, for like screen readers and things like that. So now I'm going to click on continue. Now it asks for filing status. I know you hear my dog in the background. He's gonna stop in a second, but rather than stop the recording, I'm just gonna let this go. So what's my filing status? Now, I've already told you I'm married filing jointly. In Arizona, there is no advantage whatsoever to doing married filing separately. But however, if you are married at the end of the year and lived apart from your wife and you can't talk with her or him, you know, and you need to file a separate return, you would click this. I would warn you that Arizona is a community property state, which means if you're married at the end of the year, you're supposed to claim half of your spouse's income and half of their withholdings, and they're supposed to claim half of yours. That's why it gets very complicated. It's always better if you're married to file a joint return. However, I know that sometimes can. Head of household is a tricky thing. A lot of people, I remember when I first started filing tax returns, I said, yeah, I'm the head of the household. I pay all the bills. And that's not what it is for tax filing status. But if you see this little learn more right here, if I click on this, it starts to give you descriptions. And so if you think you're head of household, I would read this description very carefully right here, because you had to have a dependent that lived with you and you provided more than half of their support to claim head of household. These other two are very rare. I don't think anybody would do this. So I'm going to say married filing jointly. Now, by the way, here's an interesting thing. Do you see this filing status wizard? You could click on this and it's just going to start asking you questions. And then if you answer all the questions, it'll choose what the best filing status is for you. So if you're not sure, use this wizard right here. I'm going to click on continue because I know I'm married filing jointly. So it's asking me for my spouse's information. I'm going to put in Donna. It should assume her last name was Simpson, but I'll go ahead and type that in here. I'm going to make up a social security number for her. And then her date of birth, I'm going to make her younger. We'll just say she was born and she would like this. I'll say 1960. Okay. And she's retired. Let's see, I should be careful about this here. 64, yeah, okay. And actually, I'm going to make this 1959 because we're gonna say she's getting Social Security when I get done. Okay, so here we go. Now you put in all of that information. Okay, now it asks again the same kind of questions about Donna. Okay, your spouse. So none of these are going to apply to her. So I'm going to click on continue. So now it asks if we have any dependents. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a dependent here. Okay. I'm going to just say my grandchild lives with me. So I'm going to say, yes, I want to claim a dependent. We're going to say that her name is Asia. And I'll just go ahead and say Simpson. That's not her last name. And let's see, we're going to make Asia less than 5 years old. So we're going to show her for the child tax credit. So I'm going to say she was born January 1st, 2017. Let's make it 2018. Okay. And then she needs a social security number. We'll just make one up for her. Okay. It's going to ask some questions about your dependent. Was she a U.S. citizen, U.S. national, or U.S. resident alien? If they were not, you cannot claim the child tax credit. But she was. We're going to say yes. It asks for the relationship. I'm going to say she's my grandchild. Now I'm going to say that she lived in my house 12 months out of the year. You know, if it's your dependent, you need to specify how many months they live there. Now, here's a little trick. If they were away at school, like if you went and checked that box that, never mind. If they were away at school, that's called a temporary absence. Like, you know, say that they're up at NAU studying, but they come back here and live with you and you pay all of their support except maybe their dorm fees or whatever, then you just say 12 months because temporary absences don't count. Okay. And see, and here's where you're going to check a box. This person was over 18 and a full-time student in an eligible education institution. In this case, this is my granddaughter, Asia, and I'm not going to check that. She's not disabled, and we are going to claim her as a dependent, so we're going to do this. There's some other questions. None of these apply, but read them carefully, because maybe you're choosing, say, your mom or dad lived with you and they lived in your house all year, you're going to claim it. This box right here, if your mom or dad worked and made over $4,300 of income, would disqualify them from being your dependent on that. So read these questions carefully and do it. So now we're going to say continue. So it says here, I've added her, but now what if I had another one? I would click up here, add another dependent or qualifying child. I don't have any more, so I'm done with this. I'm going to say continue. Now it asks about the advanced child tax credit. This is new this year. Just as a brief reminder, the last tax act that was passed about last February, Congress decided, they increased the child tax credit substantially, and then they were going to start sending advance payments of that starting July 1st of 2021. So they were going to send 6 payments that should have equaled half of the child tax credit. Now, the amount of the child tax credit depends on whether your dependent was under age 6 or under age 18. It was $3,600 for being under age 6 and $3,000 for being under age 18. Now, IRS went back and looked at your 2020 tax return, and if you claim dependents on there, they started sending advance payments based on that 2020 tax return. Unless you went into their tool and said, hey, no, don't send me any payments, right? Which I'm going to pretend for a minute that I went in and said, no, don't send me any payments. Maybe I wasn't sure I was going to claim Asia this year, okay? So did you or your spouse, if married, have a principal place of abode in the United States for more than half of 2021? Read that carefully, because sometimes when your income's too high, then it reverts back to the older rules of the $2,000 credit. But I'm going to say yes in this case. Asia, whoops. There we go. Asia lived with me for more than half of 2021, and I'm going to say continue here. Then it's going to say, did I receive any advanced child tax credit payments? And I'm going to say 0 because she was claimed on her mom's tax return in 2020. So maybe her mom got the advanced child tax credits. I'm going to say I didn't receive any. I didn't claim her on my 2020 tax return. So we're just going to say 0s and 0s here. But however, you should have gotten a letter that will say, if you received any advanced child tax credits, it's going to say how much you received, and then your spouse would have gotten a letter if applicable, and then it will say for how many kids. So you just take that letter and fill this in based on those letters. Okay, and we'll say continue here. Now, here's an important one, an IRS identity protection PIN. If you had had your identity compromised and it was reported to IRS, they're going to send you a letter with an IP PIN. That's what we call an identity protection PIN. And to be able to electronically file this return, you have to have that IP PIN. I know I filed my return early this year, and they had not sent the letters. I had to go onto irs.gov into my IRS accounts to be able to get that PIN number so I could file the return. And then I got those letters about 3 days ago, like January 29th or 30th. So you should have gotten a PIN letter. Now, maybe, as in my case, last year they allowed anybody to go in and say, hey, I want a PIN number to file my return so that nobody else can file the return in my name. And you may have done that, but so if you did, you're going to need that letter and then that PIN. And I'm going to say no on this one here, because I'm not going to file this return anyway. We're just going to get all the way to the end of it. Okay, so I'm going to say no here. But if for some reason IRS, it's been reported and they sent you an IP PIN number and you file this return, it's going to get rejected, and it'll tell you why that you didn't have it. So this is very important. So I'll hit continue here. Now, basic information summary, and I would just go check this, make sure that this is all right. Here's our contact information, this number, my filing status, and yeah, I'm okay. This is all okay. So I'm going to say continue. Then it's going to get ready to do this. And I think I'm going to stop this recording right here, and then we're going to start another recording about doing income in just a second. Okay.